Hey, today we have a pretty fun episode. And I'm not sure the timing of when this will come out, but this is our Halloween episode today.
Okay, so it's Halloween. So we got to talk tomorrow about airing this for Halloween.
Yeah.
Now, be afraid. Be very, very afraid, apparently.
Yeah.
It's going to be scary.
It's not currently Halloween. We have, on our team, we have a pretty fun event coming up. We're going to be, well, I don't know if it's fun. The agents are excited about it. To do, it's called Petapalooza. We're going to have a booth.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah.
So it's a pretty big event here in Victoria. When you come to Victoria, they give you a dog. I think you have to. It's mandatory.
It's mandatory. You can't live in the city if you don't have a dog.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be like a French bulldog or a standard poodle. Like there's only a couple breeds allowed. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know that you kind of tend to shy away from a lot of the real world events. You like to grind it out on the phones mostly.
Yeah. I'm an old school prospector. I mean, I like being belly to belly.
Social media as well.
Yeah, social media definitely is my vibe. But I like to. I mean, I like to control my outcomes or my inputs, I should say, and to some degree my outcomes. But so for me, I like the math of prospecting because I know that if I put in a certain amount of hours. And make a certain number of contacts, hit a certain number of nurtures, what have you, set a certain number of appointments, the whole thing, then I can control my year.
Right.
So it's important to me. I mean, an event like this is a lot of fun.
Right.
And you do have to go into it strategically, like in how you arrange your booth and how you have contests, and you want to walk away with a specific amount of contacts from it. But you do want to choose your events carefully because it is up to the promoter how successful the event's going to be.
Right. Yeah.
But it'll be fun.
And we don't sell dogs. We sell houses.
Yeah, we do for now.
We'll see how that goes. Maybe just on kind of that note, so you try to have, your set number of contacts per week and your set number of appointments, but also a set number of social media posts. I know you post a lot. You're a good follow. Do you have anyone that you would, and please follow us on Instagram. But
shameless plug.
Do you have anyone that you kind of would recommend? Who's a good follow for you?
I mean, so not necessarily on social media, but in terms of prospecting, like the like Don old G of prospecting and hardcore what you should be doing on the phones, I'd say is Greg Harrelson on YouTube. I watched a ton of Greg Harrelson in a few years ago. Another person that I find particularly inspiring, and that is actually the president of EXP Canada, is John Tsai. And I'm telling you, if you're ever low energy or feeling like you need a little boost of like epically good juju, go check out John Tsai and you will get that. You will get a giant boost of good juju.
Yeah, that guy's a beast.
He's a beast.
Yeah. For today, we're going to, maybe we'll talk about we're going to go through a couple different showings, different client experiences, but they're all going to kind of wrap together.
Okay, wait. I think we should bring the Halloween vibe, like the genuine Halloween vibe. And let's say the title of this podcast together. Ready? Today's podcast is Bloodbath.
You're such a dork.
Bloodbath. Blood. So it's Bloodbath. I've been waiting a while to tell this story. I'm so glad I have this podcast platform to tell these stories on. This one's like, ugh. It's scary and gross.
Yeah, it is. So set the scene.
Okay, so it is in the winter. It is in the fall, and so you know how it is in the fall. You're showing properties in the evening, but it's dark by 4:30 or 5 o'clock or whatever it is. So it wasn't even that late or anything like that. But I get to this house, and the door is unlocked. So there's no lockbox, and the instructions are just that the door will be unlocked. And this does happen. Again, this isn't that uncommon. Sometimes sellers just, for whatever reason, want to open the door for you, and then they'll sneak out the back or go, just be gone.
Hide in the closet.
Yeah. And so the door was unlocked, and I got there earlier, and I'm starting to turn on lights, but it's like lights aren't working. They're not turning on properly. It's just, things are feeling very creepy. It's dark out. There was a fireplace lit and going, and so that was kind of nice. But then, and then my client walks in, and I'm like, oh, we're fumbling with the lights, and I let them know this. So we look around. It's kind of bizarre. And then we start walking towards the basement, and there's, we're checking out, we want to go check out the downstairs because they need a suite in the house and things like that. And we start walking in the basement. We cannot find the light switch to save our lives. So we pull out our phones and use our phone flashlights. And the next thing you know, on the walls, we're looking on the walls, and there's like hand smears of like blood coming down the walls. And then, so it was my client and her boyfriend. They were both my clients, but at the time, he was like a new boyfriend coming on the scene. Anyway, and he goes, nope, I'm out. And he goes upstairs, and he's like, you guys, let's just leave. Like, let's just go. And she's like, no, I want to see the basement of this house. And it looked good in the photos. We're like, we're fumbling. We're having trouble finding the lights. And
I think that your laughter is undercutting the terror of the situation.
Okay. Let me just get back to the sheer fear, because it was actually scary. Like, it was like, and I was kind of with the boyfriend, but I didn't want to let her go down there by herself. So
you didn't want to leave her there by herself.
I didn't want to leave her there by herself. So we keep going, and we turn a corner, and my client's just like, like audible scream, like audible high-pitched scream. I haven't come around the corner yet, but I freeze. And I'm like, oh my God.
Don't go around that corner.
Yeah. It wasn't an encouraging kind of sound, right? Like, I'm just there. But again, I'm there with her. I turn the corner, and it's this like deer that's being like bled. Is that the term?
Dressed, yeah.
Dressed? That's what they do? That's what they call it?
I don't know. I'm not a hunter.
Okay, I'm not either. I don't know. So it's like this animal that's like strung up by its legs, being bled inside the house. I'm like, what is going on? I'm just I don't even remember if there was like buckets or anything, because we got so terrified. We just like screamed and ran up the stairs and ran out the door and ran like a couple steps like down the street, and her boyfriend was gone. He heard all this, and he was gone before we could get up there. So we
but there were like little like handprints in
literal handprints. Like, I don't know what possessed this person to say yes, no problem, 5:00, let him come in and have a look. Like, he was clearly busy. And anyway, that showing should never have taken place. There was blood marks on the wall. There was a dead animal hanging in the basement being bled, and like the lights weren't on. Like, it was just awful and scary and terrifying. And I still, like, I live in the neighborhood of that house. I'm uncomfortable driving by that house. Forget about it. I'm never walking by that house, but they probably don't even live there anymore. But I do not like going by that house. It was creepy.
How was that conversation afterwards with the clients?
Oh yeah, we're just like, okay, bye. I don't think we really. To be honest, that's not the part.
Did you continue showing with them?
Oh yeah. They subsequently found a totally blood-free home. Yeah. But I don't think we're like discussing it. I think we're like, let's go, let's get out of here. Got into cars and just like took off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It didn't go well for that showing.
But in a market with low inventory, it was out of consideration.
I don't know. It was creepy. That was the creepiest showing by far. Definitely like top 3 creepiest showings that I've ever been on.
Yeah. Did you inquire with the listing agent afterwards?
Yeah, well, she reached out for feedback. I'm like, so there's blood prints on the wall. I couldn't find any of the lights. There's a dead animal in the basement. What? I would have appreciated a heads up. And then she's like, oh yeah, he'd just been back from hunting. That's not always there. Yeah. Like, she wasn't even fazed.
So will you be writing?
Yeah, exactly. That'll be cleaned up prior to completion. So anyway, but I did say, like, I was like, well, if you need genuine feedback, like, get this seller to turn on all the lights before they leave the house. Like, it shouldn't be dark, and we shouldn't be fumbling around for lights, when we're out there. So yeah, the feedback was like, I was scared shitless. My clients were scared shitless, and we ran out of there screaming. That's the feedback. So, you know, a heads up would have been nice.
Yeah. And we have we have another story where we were both at this showing. I don't remember if we were doing a video preview or if we were shopping for ourselves. But a similar situation, more of a jump scare than a actual terrifying, you know, I'm about to be murdered situation. So fill in the details. It was a home where the tenant, or maybe the owner, was clearly a taxidermist.
Yeah.
And so there was, every room had probably a dozen plus.
A dozen? That's putting it mildly.
Well, yeah, because some of them were quite large. You know, pieces of art or whatever you want to call taxidermists.
Yeah, and in this case, we had gotten the heads up. So we booked the showing. Listing agent says, heads up, there's a lot of taxidermy in this house.
Yeah.
And we could tell by the photos, I feel like they must have pared down for the photographer or something, but because you could kind of see it. But when you got there, it wasn't like a dozen. It was like taxidermy floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
It was on the walls. It was live animals,
every room.
Freestanding, like big animals, just like statues, and then like all the decor and all the like buffets and hutches and like tables and side table, like everything was filled with taxidermy.
Yeah. It
was like walking into like a hoarder's house with like teddy bears everywhere or something, except for it's all taxidermy.
Yeah, and some of it was pretty cool. It certainly didn't showcase the home, but I remember there was one point where, and like I said, I don't know if we were doing a video preview.
Well, no, so we got there, you're right now, so we were looking to pick up a revenue property.
Yeah.
And we got there, and
I think it was tentative.
So bizarre. So we got the heads up on the taxidermy, but it was so bizarre that we actually did a little video walkthrough, and I think we wanted to show like some of the agents. And so we're doing this video preview being like, oh my God, like, can you believe this? Yeah. And obviously we're making candid comments about how we feel about being in this home and viewing this. Like, it was like so bizarre, so outrageous. And we're like, how are they going to, get all this stuff out of here? And how are they going to show it? This is crazy. This is creepy. It was very creepy. It was like in the hallways, in every bedroom. Anyway, everywhere you looked, there were dead animals. But then, from out of nowhere, this guy emerges. Like, there was animals everywhere. And I think what happened was he was working at his desk. The like you say, the person at home, we don't know if it's homeowner or tenant. We got out of there. But he was probably working at a desk that was surrounded by animals, so we didn't see him.
Yeah.
And it was this giant figure with like long dreadlocks past his knees, huge hair, and I think we thought he was an animal. Like, I'm sorry, but like, this was crazy.
Yeah.
And so he emerges from this scene, and we just took one look, and like, I don't know if you screamed, but I yelped, and then we turned around and like took off because we were we were embarrassed, but B, we were startled.
Very startled. Yeah, we didn't notice him until he moved, right?
Oh my God.
Or appeared. He just appeared.
Yeah. No, he emerged from the
He blended
scene,
right in
man.
with the
Oh
dreadlocks.
my God. Yeah, he blended in. It was just weird. And again, like, we came out of the house. Number one, a heads up that somebody was going to be home would have been good. And I don't even know if you could have been prepared for that. It was really, really creepy.
I was taking my time working my way through that house because there was a lot to look at, like a lot of different types of animals to look at. So I think we were going a little bit slower, and then that's why that, that him appearing was just that much more startling.
Well, totally, because like you said, there was exotic
animals. We were
animals.
immersed in our surroundings.
Totally, yeah. It was like being in the jungle, some weird, creepy taxidermy jungle, and then and we were looking at the animals. We weren't really expecting anybody to be there. Right. And in just the way, I wish I could describe the way it happened, like, because it just, we were in the room discussing the thing for, a couple minutes while this person was there, and we didn't know there was a human person in the room with us. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah. And that person was just living their life, whatever.
For sure.
Unfortunate they were there. That's not really worthy of making, some sort of shit list for us. But
no.
With the first one that you described, with the actual bloodbath one, that's where, you know, a little heads up. I mean, that is just unkind not to warn us about that. I mean, maybe the listing agent didn't know what her sellers were doing in their basement. That's also possible. But.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible, I guess. And I guess, yeah, if, you know, for home sellers, it's like, hey, if you're going to have that, just, you know, tell your agent, I'm hunting today. I can't. You know what I mean? You don't. It was not it did not help that situation at all.
And
there's a murderer in there. We were like those people that went in there. Yeah.
So you get it now. You know, watch horror movies differently now. Yeah. So obviously, we're not really going to talk about the security of an agent, because that may be another topic. But just to, if you had, let's say you were the listing agent, like what we kind of. Because clearly you weren't, as the buyer's agent, you weren't going to buy that house, right?
No.
You're not doing anybody any service.
No. There's no way that house would have had to have been so spectacular, or like the homeowner would have had to come home and been like, ha ha ha, oops. And like there would have been like a funny moment or something at the end where like nobody felt good after that viewing. There was zero compulsion to go back for a second showing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So so as a listing agent, how would you handle that situation, knowing what's going on in that house?
I mean, I guess first off, I don't know if they knew. Right. So, and like at this particular time in the market, it was a slower market. I think the home had probably been on the market for like 60 days or something like that. So it's, you know, when you've got a listing that's on for that long, you may not have spoken to your clients for a week or so. You should, but you may not have, or if they've just gone on a trip or whatever. So it's possible that the listing agent didn't know. But yeah, so I mean, but I just think like in terms of common sense, like, you know, yes, you want to get your home sold, but there's instances where, you know, you don't want to accommodate a showing. And there's been times where, you know, where we're selling a home and something's happening, like people, especially around the holidays, will say, look, I can't accommodate a showing over the Thanksgiving weekend because I'm going to have like 9 of, you know, my family here and people are sleeping on the couch, or, you know, so I'm not going to let people come through my home during that time because it's not going to show well and it's not going to go well.
Right.
So there's way milder reasons that people.
Or you could lock the fucking door.
I mean, sure, you could lock the door.
But I mean, we have, you know, clients with, you know, firearms in the home, or, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff. You lock that away in a closet, or if you can't, it's not a closet, but you have rooms that are locked sometimes, right?
I mean, yes, that there are times where like certain areas of a home might have restricted access for a specific reason, for sure. But like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't even know if I would put this on the agent because I don't know how much the agent knew. Like, I almost think, you know, like, yeah, the person could have said, hey, listen, there's this thing's happening right now. Maybe they come back in 2 days when this isn't happening. You know, there's a lot of reasons that you do that, where you're like, I can't accommodate a showing because it's actually going to hurt you to have the showing versus just doing it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was one of those times. This was the time that should have happened.
So isn't there kind of, maybe the listing agent didn't know what was going on in the house, but you do want to kind of adequately prepare the buyer's agent that are going into the house, right? Like, you want to try and tell them what to avoid, or, hey, this is here. I know it's really, really strange and terrifying, but here's why it is. So at least you know beforehand. So you can be on the steps with your client saying, hey, you know what? There's going to be, this person's a hunter, and there's going to be a dead deer in the basement.
And some blood smears on the way down.
And let's just say that the listing agent did know that, or knew that might be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and I have said a heads up would have been nice. So I do feel like there is some KYC here, and we talk about this all the time. Know your client, like KYC, and know what you know what's happening. So I'll even maybe juxtapose this with another. So if you'll believe, it's not 1 but 2 dead deer showings I've had now. Okay. But the second one was not creepy at all because I got an appropriate heads up. And then, I mean, the house showed beautifully. Number 1, they actually put effort into like turning on all the lights and like making all. But they told their agent, hey, we've just been hunting. We've got, you know, some animals in the garage. We can't just get rid of them or whatever. ask them to either not go in the garage or know that that's happening. So I did have that heads up, and I let my clients know, my buyers know, and they're like, that's okay, we're hunters too. And so they were perfectly fine with going in, and they were completely unfazed with the deer in the garage, right? So that was fine. But like, so that experience, and it was really funny because to me, I was like, what are the odds? Like, this is happening again? Like this, it never happened. And then in 1 year it happened twice. So it was just like one of those weird things. But the second experience was just further juxtaposed, or like further like showed how that can actually go just fine. And my clients were like, oh, I'm a hunter. And they kind of wanted to talk to the seller and like be friends with them. They were like, this is cool. So that went really well. And it showed in the house, despite the hunting thing, went well, like showed beautifully and showed really nicely. So yeah, I mean, KYC, when you set up that showing, like I don't even know how that conversation between the agent and the seller went when they're like, hey, can I get some people in at 5:30 later today? And like, does it not come up at all? Like, how did that get missed and then just be executed so poorly? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think as an agent, and if the client,
that's kind of an extreme example, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have, as you're a listing agent, maybe you have a home where someone's got a decrepit car in the driveway,
Right,
and
sure.
you let them know, hey, that's being taken away on next Sunday. Don't worry, it won't be. It's going to be there for your showing, but we've already dealt with it. Like this problem that you will notice. Hey, you're going to notice something really terrible with this house.
Yeah.
But it's being dealt with, and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can't fix it on the timeline that you want, but it will be fixed, and you just address it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, getting out ahead of it is ideal.
Get out ahead of it, yeah.
Yeah. And then, but even more so if you can just say, no, that don't do that. Or I strongly recommend, like, they would have been way better getting some advice to reschedule with us. Who knows? Maybe my clients would have bought, they loved the location, like,
Sure.
So maybe they would have bought that house under different circumstances, but they couldn't even think of it in terms of something
Right.
they would live in, given the way that it showed and given the showing experience.
It makes me think about, as you're trying to sell the house, right? You're saying, hey, I know this is an eyesore, but blah, blah, blah. This is what methods are being used to get rid of it. But on the flip side of that, like if you've recently had a home or if you've listed it and it's been recently renovated, you want to describe that stuff too. Like when people are going through the house, they may not know that all the electrical's been upgraded.
The
you
stuff
can't just
inside the walls.
stuff inside the walls that you can't see, right? So
Yeah.
you want to be out in front of all those, awesome features.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think really it still comes down to, if the homeowners can't think that of how these could possibly affect them in a negative way, it's definitely up to you as the agent to be giving expert advice and to have tough conversations and say, that's not okay, that's not helping you, so you should not be doing this. Even if they don't take your advice, you at least have to get the words out and know that you're saying these things are, in the best interest of your client.
It's the 3 Ps, right? Or what you don't want to do is the 3 Ps, which is put up a sign, put it on MLS, and pray.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
That's how. Yeah, exactly.
You want to. Every showing is a potential sale.
Yeah,
and you want to make sure your best foot forward is on each one of those.
Yeah, especially in a market like a showing's an at bat for a seller.
An at bat, yeah.
And so especially in a market like that where it's like, maybe you haven't had one in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so clearly they were desperate to get us through, right? So clearly they needed that showing. Mm-hmm. I would, I assume. So they probably needed it to go well more than just getting it done. So I think the point with all of this is to say, number one, KYC. Mm-hmm. The more you can do that, the more you can know your people ahead of time, the more you as the agent can get out ahead of stuff like this, right? So getting out ahead of what could come up in a showing. I mean, a number of reasons, or things that need to be locked away, or preparing them for time frames where it's not going to be great to show the home or whatever, and knowing that like this is how you have to put your best foot forward, prepare them for the fact that it's an at bat and they're merchandising their property, like all of those things. But then when that doesn't necessarily go the way you wanted it to, remember consistently, you're the expert. But then, if something does go unexpectedly, or if something comes up that you didn't foresee, or the client maybe, pulls something on you, like leaving a dead deer in the basement, you have to be able to go, hey, okay, then we can't accommodate this showing. You have to have the candid conversation in the best interest of your client. You're always the expert, and you have to be the one that's appropriately advising them for whatever is best for them, right? Because people can act against their best interest sometimes, or maybe they get confused, they don't know. I'm sure this guy was like, hey, someone wants to come, no big deal. He probably thought nothing of it. He probably doesn't even know that we were screaming and running out of his house in terror. Right. Probably came home and was like, oh, this is, but and thought everything was fine. So again, you're the expert. You have to get out in front of this when you can. But then when you can't, you still have to be able to head it off, interject, and set your client up for success.
Yeah, as a team, or even as a solo agent earlier, you've always been kind of buyer heavy. So like you have a ton of these stories from showings gone wrong, and then just knowing that now our office is probably 50-50 listings. We're certainly more listing heavy than we used to be, and you've taken that experience as a buyer. Showing agent going through a home. Here's what I wish the listing agent would have told me, or I wish I would have had the ammunition to sell this place better because I feel like they would have liked it. So if I just would have had a couple features, a couple talking points. I know that I've heard you talk to people going for showings. You have talking points for them.
Right.
You say, here's what to look out for in the house, or did you tell your folks about this?
Yeah.
You can write it in the remarks, but those are only so big, and you can
Sure.
do marketing, but when you're talking to an agent, you're priming them. It's an opportunity to sell.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I feel like that's kind of like the flip side of the conversation that we're having, where it's like, we were talking about agents that were like, oh, hey, no, it's great, it's perfectly fine, and not preparing, people going into the property for how bad the situation is that they're walking into, so they could be out ahead of it. But the flip side of that is underselling the property, right? So where you've got agents that aren't giving you enough of the good information about the home that you might not be able to see on visual inspection, right? Like, things like what's inside the walls, like we were talking about, like upgrades that might be inside the walls, or having redone the drain tile, or maybe I've even seen it where like an underground oil tank has been removed and nobody mentioned it. Like that's key. Like that's
the drain tile is a big one too. Yeah,
the drain tile is a big one, and that's not stuff that everybody knows how to see. So yeah, as the listing agent, you can't assume that all agents are created equal, or that have an equal understanding of the home that you're listing that you or the sellers might have. And so you have to be, you want to be like not spoon feeding, but essentially like making sure that every agent doing every showing on that property has the whole marketing perspective on that property. So yeah, you can get the underselling. That's the flip side of it. And you're right. Like, I've been in showings where I'm like, oh my God, that would have been so helpful to know at the time when I was showing the home, because that would have been, something the buyers would have considered and may have even made a decision to write an offer if they would have known these things about the home.
Right. Yeah. So in summary, on the buy side, know your client, know what they're going to be.
Well, always buy and sell, KYC.
Right.
All the time, you need to know your client. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.